And I can't remember anybody except the Queen being there.
May thy servant Camilla, who wears this crown, be filled by thine abundant grace, and with all princely virtues.
From the shadows of scandal to the spotlight of royalty, Camilla's journey has never been smooth. Branded early on as the woman who shattered the fairy tale marriage between Prince Charles and Princess Diana, her reputation became a lightning rod for outrage, heartbreak, and betrayal. Even after decades beside Charles and her official rise to Queen Consort, Camilla's name still stirs unease. Her presence at royal events draws quiet protest, icy stares, and open skepticism. So, what exactly is it about her that keeps public resentment burning so fiercely? Keep watching to find out. The stain Camilla can't wash off. To understand the public's fury toward Camilla is to understand the devotion they had for Diana. She wasn't just a royal bride or the mother of a future king. She was a global phenomenon. From the moment she stepped into the spotlight, her warmth and vulnerability broke through the traditional coldness of the monarchy. Diana gave the British royal family a human face, someone who didn't hide behind protocols or pretend perfection. She laughed, she cried, and most of all, she connected. That connection would become a crown too heavy for Camilla to ever wear. In the years following Charles and Diana's high-profile separation, Camilla's name was spoken with disdain, often spat out as if it carried the venom of betrayal itself. The public didn't just believe she had interfered in a marriage. They were convinced she had stolen the fairy tale. Diana's heartbreaking comment in that infamous 1995 interview, "There were 3 of us in this marriage."
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Cut through the royal illusion and cast Camilla permanently in the role of the intruder. One sentence sealed a narrative that no palace PR could undo. The media, already eager to fan the flames of royal scandal, latched onto Camilla as the perfect villain. Headlines painted her as manipulative and heartless, the woman who lurked in the background while Diana suffered in plain sight. Photographs of Charles and Camilla together, once rare and whispered about, were now splashed across tabloids with no mercy. The British public, already grieving the fairy tale that never was, redirected their sorrow into outrage. For many, Camilla wasn't just a mistake, she was the reason Diana cried. Even after Diana's tragic death in 1997, the grief didn't soften public opinion. If anything, it made Camilla's presence harder to accept. By the time she married Charles in 2005, many still saw her as a usurper, stepping into shoes that were never meant for her. She may have worn the title of Duchess of Cornwall and later Queen Consort, but Diana's legacy cast a long and unrelenting shadow over every step she took. Camilla worked tirelessly behind the scenes to reshape her image, focusing on charity, appearing dignified, staying out of drama. But the ghost of Diana followed her everywhere. Each public appearance was a comparison, each smile measured against one that once belonged to a woman the world lost too soon. No matter how much time passed, Diana remained the cherished symbol of grace and heartbreak, while Camilla was seen as the woman who helped break it all apart. Now, as Camilla stands beside King Charles III, the world watches with polite restraint, but not quite forgiveness. In the hearts of many, Diana remains irreplaceable, and Camilla, despite the crown on her head, remains the woman who was never meant to wear it. But what shadows from Camilla's family past shape the woman behind the scandal? Stay glued to your screen. Shadows of the past, Camilla's royal burden. And yet, the legacy Camilla carried wasn't just haunted by Diana. It was stitched deep into her own family's history of royal entanglements and scandal. Long before Camilla ever crossed paths with Charles, controversy was practically part of her bloodline. Her great-grandmother, Alice Keppel, had once held the attention of another Prince of Wales, Edward VII. Their affair, which began in the late 1890s, lasted more than a decade and unfolded in the public's view, cloaked by whispered acknowledgement. Alice, elegant and clever, was no ordinary mistress. She was married with children, yet her influence over the prince was undeniable. She walked a delicate line between scandal and social power, gaining favor in court while bringing discomfort to her own family, who lived under the shadow of her very public secret. Generations later, history seemed to echo itself through Camilla. The charm, the discretion, the unshakable pull toward a future king, all of it felt hauntingly familiar. She first met Charles in the early 1970s, and although their romance didn't last, ending when she married Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973, the connection remained. Even after Charles married Diana in 1981, Camilla was never far from his world. Their paths, like Alice's and Edward's before them, kept crossing, even if quietly. While Diana captured the hearts of millions and lit up the world stage, Camilla deliberately stayed in the background. She avoided cameras, declined royal limelight, and stayed tucked within quieter corners of aristocratic life. But her presence was always there, an invisible thread running through the fabric of Charles's marriage, tightening over time. Camilla's past and present became mirrors, reflecting not only her own choices but generations of whispered affairs and uncomfortable truths. The public might have tried to cast her as a villain, but the story was more tangled than it seemed. As with her great-grandmother, her role in royal life was never simple, never black and white. Today, standing beside Charles as queen consort, Camilla continues to carry the weight of both memory and legacy. And while the world may never forget the heartbreak that once surrounded her name, her story, woven from both love and controversy, remains one of the most complex chapters in the history of the crown. But what past heartbreaks and hidden moments shaped the man who finally said, "I do," at Windsor Guildhall? Stay tuned to find out. Camilla's journey to queen consort. Still, the years that followed proved that royal titles were not always enough to win over hearts, especially when the crown itself sat atop a history many wished to forget. By the time Charles and Camilla stood together at Windsor Guildhall on April 9, 2005, exchanging vows in a modest civil ceremony, their union had already weathered a lifetime's worth of storms. What might have been a simple wedding for any other couple was, in their case, a national reckoning, one shaped by scandal, sorrow, and a public that had long divided itself into defenders and critics. To many, the event marked the long overdue resolution of a relationship that had survived in the shadows. To others, it was a painful reminder of a marriage that had once ended in tragedy. Camilla didn't just marry a man, she married into centuries of expectation and disappointment. As Duchess of Cornwall, she deliberately stepped away from the title of Princess of Wales, a name so closely tied to Diana that even using it would have reopened wounds. It was a symbolic gesture of restraint and respect, but it did little to ease the tide of disapproval. For years, the press continued to paint her as the intruder, the outsider who had taken the place of Britain's beloved people's princess. Her public appearances were met with cold glances and whispers, every smile scrutinized, every step measured. Behind the palace walls, acceptance came even more slowly. Queen Elizabeth II, ever mindful of duty and image, was hesitant to embrace Camilla as a future queen consort. The Church of England's traditional stance on divorce and remarriage added another layer of complexity. Though Charles had long fought for Camilla's rightful place beside him, the Queen's silence in the early years spoke volumes. It wasn't until 2000, when she quietly attended a party at Highgrove, that a subtle shift began to emerge. A royal olive branch extended with caution. Still, the transformation was not immediate. It took years of behind-the-scenes diplomacy and patience for Camilla to step into the spotlight without backlash trailing close behind. Charles, determined to secure her position without threatening his own path to the throne, navigated these waters carefully, shielding Camilla from further humiliation while gradually integrating her into public life. Then came February 2022, a moment few believed would ever come. Queen Elizabeth II made a rare and personal statement expressing her sincere wish that Camilla be known as Queen Consort when Charles becomes king. It was more than just a title. It was a seal of legitimacy, an acknowledgement that whatever the past had held, Camilla had endured. Yet even then the public remained split. For every softened heart, there was another still holding tightly to the memory of Diana, unable to reconcile the past with the present. Camilla's path to the crown was not carved by birthright or glamour, but by persistence, discretion, and time. Her story may never be one of universal admiration, but it is undeniably one of survival, one that turned whispered scandal into quiet triumph. The unseen struggles of Camilla's public image. But even as the Queen's blessing formally elevated Camilla to Queen Consort, the path beneath her feet remained anything but smooth. The crown she now wore had been forged not only from tradition and duty, but also from decades of suspicion, scorn, and whispered resentment that refused to fade with time. For much of her life in the public eye, Camilla had walked under a dark cloud of public judgment, a figure cast not as a royal partner, but as a symbol of betrayal. The words once uttered by Princess Diana in her 1995 interview with Martin Bashir, "There were three of us in this marriage," echoed through the years, etched into the collective memory of a nation that mourned Diana's pain and blamed Camilla for it. That single sentence, spoken with quiet dignity, cemented Camilla's place in the narrative as the interloper, the woman who broke a fairy tale. From the outset, the media pounced on this portrayal. Stories painted her as manipulative, cold, and driven by ambition rather than love. Tabloids routinely scrutinized her every move, reporting on her mood swings, alleged arrogance, and clashes within the royal household. The idea that Camilla had schemed her way into Charles's heart and eventually the palace was fed to the public like a never-ending drama. Royal biographers described her as difficult and overbearing, suggesting that her presence unsettled the careful order of royal life. And it wasn't just the press. Behind closed doors, key figures within political circles voiced their discomfort. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair, though careful in public, was rumored to have expressed private concern that Camilla's arrival in the royal family would do more to reopen old wounds than heal them. Others within the establishment worried that her presence could tarnish the monarchy's future. Whether fair or not, her reputation often came before her, closing doors before she had a chance to speak. Even as she stepped dutifully into royal engagements, supporting Charles and lending her voice to causes like literacy and domestic abuse awareness, it was rarely enough. Each good deed was often met with a quiet undercurrent of cynicism. Was it heartfelt or calculated? Among older generations, especially those who had lived through the spectacle of Charles and Diana's unraveling marriage, the pain had never quite dulled. For them, Camilla remained a reminder of the heartbreak of what might have been. Yet time has a way of softening edges, and among younger Britons, there has been a cautious shift. Many see her less as the villain of a love triangle and more as a complex woman who, like the monarchy itself, has evolved. While skepticism still lingers, so does a measure of understanding that perhaps Camilla, like so many before her, has been both flawed and unfairly judged. In the end, her story remains one of paradox, crowned at last, but never quite free from the thorns that came with it. The coronation's unspoken tensions, and yet, despite the grandeur of her new title, the silence that followed Queen Camilla through Westminster Abbey on Coronation Day was louder than any royal fanfare, as King Charles rose from his throne and began his walk down the aisle. Those gathered stood and offered respectful bows and curtsies, a gesture of loyalty, of reverence. But when Camilla followed just steps behind him, the stillness that met her was unmistakable. No bowed heads, no lifted hems, just a wall of quiet defiance, carefully measured and impossible to ignore. It wasn't a mistake, it wasn't forgetfulness, it was a statement. The rift within the royal family had been growing, but in that sacred moment at the heart of Westminster Abbey, it was fully exposed. Many of those who had once stood by Camilla, those who had quietly supported her long before the crown ever touched her head, had been shut out from the guest list. Among them were familiar allies, friends who had helped shape her public image during the turbulent years. Their exclusion stung. Meanwhile, inside the Abbey, Camilla's carefully chosen circle stood in place. 20 women holding identical pocket posies, a floral gesture meant to symbolize grace, but which only deepened the sense of separation. To those watching closely, the tension was palpable. Kate Middleton's expression was reserved, William's body language distant. Even Prince Harry, standing apart from his family, seemed to carry the weight of that moment in his posture.
I need to do this for my family. This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's.
The air was thick with unspoken frustration, an unyielding awareness that Camilla's rise had come at a cost. And for many, this silent protest was not about royal protocol. It was about feeling unseen, discarded, or worse, deliberately removed from history. What should have been a moment of unity and celebration revealed instead the deep fractures beneath the surface of the monarchy. The power may have changed hands, the titles may have shifted, but the emotional reckoning within the House of Windsor was far from over. In that small stretch of aisle, surrounded by marble and memory, Queen Camilla walked not with applause, but with the cool judgment of a nation and a family still struggling to accept her place. The crown may have finally rested on her head, but for some, their loyalty would remain with the past. And in the silence of that historic day, their message was heard. But what past scars and quiet battles shaped Camilla into the Queen Consort? The world still questions today? Stay tuned to find out. Camilla's rise and the nation's uneasy acceptance. And so, as King Charles ascended to the throne, Camilla stepped into the spotlight as Queen Consort, a role that reopened old wounds and sparked fresh debate across the country. Her coronation was more than a ceremony. It was a turning point that laid bare the deep divisions within the British public. For decades, Camilla's place in the royal family had been questioned, her past casting a long, stubborn shadow over her new title. While many have gradually accepted her presence beside the king, her crowning as Queen Consort was anything but a smooth or unanimous decision. Polls taken around the time of Queen Elizabeth II's passing revealed just how conflicted the nation remains. Over half the respondents supported Camilla's new title, a marked change from the harsh rejection she faced in the years after her relationship with Charles became public. Yet nearly a third remained opposed, fiercely loyal to Princess Diana's memory and unwilling to see Camilla as anything but an intruder. For older generations, the wounds of the 1980s and 1990s still feel raw. The haunting words from Diana's famous interview, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," echo painfully in their minds, turning Camilla into a symbol of betrayal rather than a respected royal figure. Younger Britons, however, tend to view her through a different lens. Many of them did not live through the media frenzy surrounding Diana, and instead see Camilla as a devoted partner and dutiful royal who has steadily worked to earn her place. Their more measured acceptance reflects a shift in attitudes, one that acknowledges the complexities of the past but focuses more on Camilla's present contributions. Still, even among this younger crowd, the shadow of Diana lingers, creating an uneasy tension every time Camilla steps into the public eye. Media coverage has played a huge role in shaping these mixed feelings. Early portrayals painted Camilla as scheming and cold, always in contrast to Diana's warmth and grace. Over time, some outlets have softened, recognizing her efforts in charity and royal duties, but the past refuses to fade. Discussions of Camilla's role almost always bring Diana's name to the surface, keeping the comparison alive and making it difficult for Camilla to shake the image of the other woman. The title of Queen Consort carries centuries of tradition and prestige, but it also invites intense scrutiny. For Camilla, this scrutiny is intensified by history and public sentiment. Every smile, every public engagement, every royal appearance is weighed not just on its own merits, but against the impossible standards set by Diana's memory. Events like the Platinum Jubilee or Queen Elizabeth II's funeral have repeatedly reminded the world what might have been, highlighting the ongoing tension between tradition and change within the monarchy. Ultimately, Camilla's journey to becoming Queen Consort is about more than just a title. It reflects a nation wrestling with its past, its values, and what it means to move forward. No matter how much she embraces her duties, the story of Diana's legacy will continue to shape how the public sees her, leaving Camilla to navigate a crown that is as heavy with history as it is with responsibility. But what scars from Camilla's past still haunt the crown she now wears? And how did they shape the woman behind the title? Stay tuned. Camilla's Quiet War for public acceptance. Yet behind the polished ceremonies and royal titles, Camilla's presence still stirs something unresolved in the hearts of many. She entered the royal spotlight carrying the weight of a turbulent past, one that made headlines for all the wrong reasons. And though she has walked steadily beside King Charles III since their marriage in 2005, the shadows of what once was continue to trail her every step. Becoming Queen Consort in 2022 wasn't just a matter of royal protocol. It reopened old wounds, reminded the public of past betrayals, and reignited the emotional loyalty many still hold toward the late Princess Diana. But Camilla did not sit quietly in the years following her entry into royal life. Aware that the nation viewed her through a lens of judgment, she slowly began to recast herself, not with grand gestures, but with quiet persistence. She took on causes that spoke not to glamour, but to pain and healing. Domestic violence, rape survivors, literacy, osteoporosis. These weren't headline-grabbing topics, but they were deeply human and deeply personal. Her mother and grandmother had both died from osteoporosis, making her advocacy not just sincere, but urgent. As patron of the National Osteoporosis Society, Women's Aid, and other charities, Camilla leaned into the quiet work, visiting shelters, championing underfunded programs, and speaking out for those often unheard. These efforts, while far from dramatic, were consistent and unrelenting. She showed up again and again, even when the spotlight dimmed. Her willingness to support overlooked causes slowly chipped away at the icy image many had of her. She wasn't trying to erase the past, she was trying to reshape the present. Still, for all her efforts, the question remains: has she done enough? The answer isn't simple. Among younger Britons, her work has earned her a cautious nod of respect. They see a woman who took a damaged reputation and tried to rebuild it, not by demanding sympathy, but by doing the work. For this generation, who never watched the drama of Charles and Diana unfold in real time, Camilla's past carries less emotional weight. They measure her by what she does now, not by what tabloids once screamed across their front pages. But for many older citizens, the scars of the past run deeper. They remember Diana's pain. They remember that unforgettable line, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," and they haven't forgotten who the third person was. To them, Camilla's crown doesn't shine quite as brightly. Her charity work, while admirable, is still not enough to rewrite the narrative they've held on to for decades. The media, always a powerful force in shaping royal perception, hasn't helped her fully break free either. Though more sympathetic in recent years, it remains quick to remind the world of Camilla's controversial origins. Every time she appears at a major royal event, whether it's a state banquet or the late Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, there is often a whisper of "what if" in the air. What if Diana had lived? What would she have looked like as queen? These questions, though unspoken by the monarchy, echo loudly among the public. Despite this, Camilla continues forward, not with fanfare, but with determination. Her reign as queen consort may never be universally celebrated. There will always be those who see her as an interloper, someone who stepped into a role that wasn't meant for her. But there will also be those who quietly acknowledge the hard road she's traveled to get here, and the grace with which she's tried to carry the burden. Whether she is ever fully embraced or not, Camilla has done what many thought she never would. She stayed, she served, and she survived the storm. And in the world of royalty, that alone is a kind of victory. But what do you think? Is it truly possible for Camilla to be embraced as queen consort? We'd like to hear your take. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.